Hello all, welcome to my Patreon account. In this Truth Seeker requested video that's been sitting in my documents file forever, I will be talking about the stage deaths of many famous celebrities. I mean, do they think we're stupid? This is a trigger warning. In this video, I may be talking about or showing sensitive material about some subjects or topics that may be disturbing or upsetting or may bring forth some troubling memories, as you read in the description or title. With that said, either end the video now or brace yourself. Aside from that, enjoy. I've been asked to do a video about this a long time ago on all of the deaths in Hollywood that weren't quite right, still suspicious. Starting up with Natalie Wood. I did a video about Natalie Wood a while ago, and her death was always so puzzling to me because many people heard them fighting, and the boat captain also stated weird behavior from her then husband Robert Wagner almost moments leading up to her disappearance. There were strange things going on. Take a look. Now, here are the conspiracies and theories after Dennis Davern, the captain, spoke out. Now, after 30 years, it was reported that Dennis Davern, the captain, publicly stated that he lied. It was told that Natalie and Walken had been flirting with one another, and insecure Wagner got jealous. Take a look at this.
Tension was building throughout the whole weekend of Robert Wagner being jealous of Christopher Walken. And that afternoon, Robert Wagner and myself, we joined Christopher and Natalie at the restaurant for dinner. And we had dinner, we had drinks. Robert Wagner said it was time to return to the boat. Natalie, we all kind of wanted to stay a little longer, but RJ said, no, we're going to go back to the boat. So we all went back to the boat. I tied the dinghy up on the swim platform with a bow line and a stern line. And we all went inside the boat and opened a bottle of wine, put the kettle on for some tea, because Natalie liked to have tea before she went to bed. And the jealousy was just getting so tense that Robert Wagner had picked up the bottle of wine and smashed it right in front of Natalie and Christopher on the coffee table. And at that moment, Christopher stood up and he went directly to his stateroom. And that was the last I've seen of him for that whole night. At that point, Natalie was devastated, and she went into her stateroom, and Robert Wagner had followed. And they were arguing in the stateroom.
That night, Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood, ferocious fight going on. You turned up your music so they would not think in your mind that you were eavesdropping or trying to hear them, but you did hear them.
Yeah, yes, I did. And I kept the music going, but I could still hear the arguing. And then the arguing went on to the aft deck, and moments later, everything became silent.
So the next morning, I guess she was feeling a little bit better, so she went back to the boat to smooth things over with Wagner. But I'm sure at this point he was already plotting, and the anger at this point was boiling into a breaking point. So it was later as Walkens and Woods went to a restaurant for some drinks, probably to give Wagner some air and time alone. But keep in mind, Wagner was a jealous man, so he had Davern take him to the restaurant where they were, and they all had drinks, and it was reported
that they were so drunk upon leaving, whereas the owner of the restaurant had to call the harbor master to make sure that they made it back to their boat safely. Meanwhile, Woods and Watkins were still laughing and Wagner still feeling ignored and even more pissed and even more drunk. Dennis, the captain, said Robert got so pissed that he burst a bottle of wine and screamed at Christopher Walken, yelling, "You want to fuck my wife?" But Christopher ignored him and went to his bedroom and remained there for the entire night. Now, do note that Davern even took a polygraph test proving that's exactly what happened. So, later Davern said that he heard them fighting and it was brutal. He said he heard screaming and things being broken. It sounded like someone was being brutally beaten. So he couldn't stand the noise even through his music, so he went to their room and asked Wagner if everything was okay. And Wagner told Davern to go away. It apparently continued onto the deck, and then it suddenly went silent. Then later he found Wagner at the back of the boat, back face to water, saying that Natalie is gone. She is missing, and told Davern to look for her. Take a look at this.
So I thought that maybe they were making up and maybe they were going to go to bed and that was going to be the end of it. So I waited for a little while and I still had the music on, and I decided, well, I'm going to go down below and I'm going to go to the F deck and just see if everything's okay. Well, Robert Wagner was standing there, leaning his back against the back of the boat, facing the boat, and he said that Natalie was missing and would I go search the boat. So I immediately went to my stateroom, thinking that maybe she went to my stateroom because she felt maybe that she was safe there, because the night before, Natalie and I had gone ashore and we stayed at a hotel because there was arguing the day before as well. So I came back and I told Robert Wagner that Natalie was nowhere on the boat. I looked in Christopher's stateroom, I looked in the other empty stateroom, and she wasn't there. So I said to Robert Wagner, he said to me, he said, the dinghy is gone too. Well, I just knew that Natalie was so deathly afraid of the water and not really capable of taking that boat by herself. But he said the boat was gone and she was gone. So I thought, well, let's turn on the searchlight and let's just see if we can see her. So after that, it was like he said no.
Which led to examiners changing the cause of her death from accidental to drowning and other undetermined factors. Many have speculated that Wagner could have potentially played a role in Wood's alleged, suicide, drowning, whatever, but to her homicide, to make it look like an accidental drowning, as I stated before. Marilyn Monroe. The death of Marilyn Monroe has always been a mystery. Some say that her housekeeper was paid to lie about what really happened. I also did a video about her as well. Take a look.
On the 19th of May 1962 at Madison Square Gardens, New York, Marilyn Monroe serenaded the President of the United States in front of 40 million people.
Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe had in fact been having an affair behind Jackie Kennedy's back for 8 years and was convinced that the president would one day leave his wife for her.
She always talked about marrying Jack. She wanted to be First Lady. She thought that was a possibility. I said, Marilyn, that's not a possibility. I mean, this is not going to happen. Oh, you don't know, what do you know? You go, oh, well, whatever. But, yeah, she thought that he would marry her. She thought that he would leave Jackie and marry her and make her First Lady.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
Jackie Kennedy knew of the affair, but rather than witness Marilyn's performance for Jack's 45th birthday, she decided to go horse riding.
By Jackie's absence from Madison Square Garden, we can tell that Jackie was a very, very astute wife who knew exactly what was going on, and knew when to keep away, and knew that she didn't want to be publicly embarrassed, and so erased the whole thing from her vision.
That night, Marilyn Monroe was escorted by Secret Service agents to the Carlyle Hotel in New York to celebrate with her presidential lover. But the actress had little idea that it was to be the last time that she'd ever see him.
If people who had seen this event at the time, if they really understood the full impetus, I think JFK would have been drummed out of the White House then and there.
Marilyn's flamboyant performance was too much for the president. And shortly after his birthday party, she was told that their affair was over.
Oh, she got really upset. She was crying because of the way he did it. She couldn't be on the phone and say, well, why, Jack? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? She couldn't get that closure. So she went ape. She was going around like a cuckoo. I thought she was going to tear the house.
Okay, as you heard in the video, she thought that JFK would marry her, and she was struggling with this prior to her death. Not to mention her career wasn't doing so well, especially after her marriage with Arthur Miller had subsided. But you all should know, the affair with JFK and Marilyn started long before he married Jackie Kennedy. It was told that he even promised Marilyn that he would marry her, and Marilyn thrived on this. She wanted this so badly, told many of her friends. She wanted to be the first lady. Take a look at this.
The rivalry between Marilyn Monroe and Jacqueline Kennedy began at a Beverly Hills dinner party in 1951. The beautiful actress who'd recently starred in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was an enticing dinner companion for Jack Kennedy. But in May of the same year, he met another woman at a society gathering. The attractive Jacqueline Bouvier was a well-educated debutante. The ambitious young senator was interested in both women, but really only had one option.
He needed a highly intelligent, very photogenic wife, at least, who had never been married, and who had these outstanding social characteristics that Jackie had. She had been debutante of the year, she had gone to the Sorbonne, she was college educated, she was very bright, and so I think it was almost for him a step upward.
Marilyn Monroe lost Jack Kennedy to Jacqueline Bouvier.
Alright, here are some of the conspiracies. First conspiracy is what I like to call common one. Marilyn was so distraught over being told to stay away from the White House and the Kennedys, whereas she was so torn up, where she pretty much missed a lot of work at the time and didn't want to go in, you know, all that stuff. So she just got some sleep. She accidentally took an overdose because of it, because it was told that she couldn't sleep, and they think that she just accidentally overdosed on pills. Even though the autopsy said that she had a whole bunch of pills in her system, but there weren't any water laying around, so they don't know how she was able to take them. So that was kind of weird. Yeah, let's move on to the second conspiracy, is what I like to call the fairy tale. It was told that considering the death of both Marilyn and Kennedy, they were so close together, it was told that her death was staged, and his, just so they can escape, mainly her, the Hollywood life, and John and she can hide out together and live out their days. Whatever. I don't know about that. But there is a lot of evidence pointing to this. Take a look at this clip.
On the 5th of August 1962, the world went into shock. Marilyn Monroe, one of the most successful Hollywood stars of the period, was dead. The coroner's report stated that overnight Monroe had swallowed 40 barbiturates. They caused her stomach lining to hemorrhage so intensely that she was dead before the ambulance arrived. But in the intervening decades, suspicion has arisen that she didn't die that night. Instead, disturbed by the pressures of fame and unrequited love, she faked her own death to start a new life elsewhere. Inconsistencies between the verdict and the crime scene created the initial suspicion. Although the official verdict was suicide by barbiturate overdose, there was no trace of the pills in her bloodstream. Others, like journalist Frank Wilkins, wondered how she swallowed such a quantity of pills when there was no liquid in the room in which she was found. There is also some evidence to suggest that an ambulance arrived at the scene and was turned away shortly before midnight, when Monroe was still alive. If there was nothing to hide, this behavior points to something more sinister at play. The drivers that took Monroe to the mortuary, Alan Abbott and Ron Hast, later stated that the body they collected looked completely unrecognizable, with false teeth and false breasts, as well as prominent dark roots and a bloated, swollen neck. Some of the strongest evidence that the corpse may not have been hers comes from sightings of her in the last 54 years. Most recently, on June 28, 2009, at least 26 people claimed to have seen her on a beach in Hawaii. In an interview with herbalist and writer Derek Klontz, one witness, Jenny Kramer-Smith, described the sighting. She said, "Marilyn was wrinkled and a little humpbacked like any other little old lady. What was left of her hair was cut very short, and it was white and thin. But Marilyn is Marilyn. There's no mistaking that smile, those lips, and that face." Yet another witness, Sally Matin, described taking a deep breath and calling out Marilyn's name as loud as she could. Allegedly, the old lady was then escorted away by a man in a suit. This whole incident is alarming because of how unusual it is to have mass sightings.
And I'm very appreciative to all who listened. Let's start again.
Writer Eric Romaine has long been convinced that Monroe faked her own death, and has produced a dossier of evidence supporting his claim. Romaine argues that Monroe was so desperate to escape from difficult circumstances and harassment by the press that faking her own death was the only way to get the clean break she craved. He says that the following circumstances deepened her feeling of entrapment.
How do you feel about all this madness every time you come out and make a public appearance? It looks as though we're all going to die of suffocation in here.
It was well known that Monroe found it difficult to deal with paparazzi stalking, and binged on alcohol and anti-anxiety drugs to deal with it. She also had a string of relationships with high-profile figures that brought extra pressure on her life. Journalist Anthony Scaduto claims that Monroe detailed her raunchy affairs in a diary. He says she was threatening to reveal her well-known secret affairs with President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Scaduto says that when the brothers ended these affairs, Monroe could not accept it and would call the White House in throes of depression. Investigative reporters Jay Margolis and Richard Buskin claim the FBI and CIA were linked to the events that night. It is possible that the agencies masterminded a faked death to stop Monroe from bringing the president into sordid disrepute. In this case, it would be a disappearance along the lines of the Witness Protection Program. Eric Romaine says another motive was revenge against her ex-husband Joe DiMaggio. Although they had divorced in 1952, they still occasionally slept together. On the morning of her death, Monroe received a call from DiMaggio insisting it was finally over. According to Romaine, she was so erratic before she died that this is certainly a plausible motive for her disappearing. He wrote, "Would she cut off her nose to spite her face? Would she throw away her career to make DiMaggio feel bad? I certainly wouldn't put it past her."
The third conspiracy is what I like to call being permanently silent, and this includes my analysis as well. Now, as you saw in the video, Marilyn was devastated that her 8-year affair with her Prince Charming was coming to an end, and not to mention she wasn't going to become First Lady. Her last desperate attempt was when she tried dating John's brother, but he saw her motive and dumped her and ordered her to stay away. That was a really big blow. And the movie she was doing was called Something Gotta Give, where she was playing a photographer. and mother of 2 small children who was declared, well, she was declared legally dead. That's interesting. After having been lost at sea in the Pacific. This movie had, I mean, you gotta think about this. This movie didn't make anything better. And it had to be so hard for her to do it. It was like, okay, I'm living on my fantasies. I just lost the love of my life, and I gotta go to this movie set and live. You can imagine what was going through her mind at this time. She's very vulnerable and just heartbroken. I mean, it was like a glimpse of the life she wanted. I mean, she wanted this life with John. I believe this escalated the feelings and dreams she had about him. So I believe she did in fact threaten to expose their affair, and John and their Secret Service men killed her before that could happen.
Yes, so it's evidentiary that she may have been killed by the Kennedys' Secret Service to keep her quiet, and then covered up and made it to look like she accidentally took an overdose of pills. I mean, seriously, do they really believe that crap? Yeah. Lisa, the Eye to the Left rapper, from one of my favorite female groups, TLC, upon her breakup with her ex-boyfriend Andre Rison, in which she set his place on fire, you know, from burning the tub, I guess, with his clothes. The details are still a bit hazy, among other issues with the group and their money as well. Lisa decided to do some soul searching, and she vowed to document her entire journey. She went on a vegan journey with no computer, all natural seaweed and moss, but this journey was following her partnership with Death Row Records, were rumored to have been a partnership with Death Row Records. You see, you all should know that many labels wanted to sign Lisa prior to her death, but she decided to start her own record label called Left Eye Productions, in which she mentored the group Black, and they did well. They were featured in the movie Bring It. I still watch that, not to mention many other deals that was coming her way. But then the accident happened mysteriously. If you take a look at the video, it looked like someone may have put something in the road that caused her to swerve off. Take a look.
I believe that your life is defined by what you believe in. And I believe that
every time that there is a struggle, it is nothing but a preparation for what's yet to come.
I made an entire video about her. I think her death was premeditated, and considering she was a celebrity promoting Dr. Sebi, and we all know how many enemies he had, they wanted to end this right away. So, could her death couldn't have been a homicide made to look like an accident? Let me know what you think below. The death of Bruce Lee and his son Brandon Lee has always been a mystery. I just posted a video. Well, I didn't post it, I just updated a video that I did about them years ago. You can catch it, you know, you can find it in my community chat. If you need the link, check it out. I worked very hard on that. I had so many problems and struggles with whoever tried to strike my account and send threats and flag it. I mean, putting that video out years ago gave me nothing but hell. You have no idea. A lot of my videos were like that. I'm trying to get them reestablished again, so you might see a lot of old videos popping in your feed if things go well. Anyway, it was told that he died while filming a movie 2 months prior to his passing. It was told Lee suffered a seizure and collapsed. Doctors were able to assist him, but a few months later, after complaining about a headache, Lee was found lifeless in his room. Doctors reported that he had an allergic reaction to Equalgesic, an aspirin, and tranquilizer he used to help with seizures. But many people believe that this was deliberate. Take a look.
Like his father, Brandon too died at an early age while filming a movie. Now let's explore these theories. Okay, this theory. He died from a DMAC, a death strike, that he received sometime earlier, whereas Bruce Lee was killed by a death touch. Now this scenario suggests that Bruce Lee was killed by a single fatal martial arts blow. It was supposed to be a punishment for Bruce teaching Eastern martial arts secrets to Americans and others. You see, the death touch refers to DMAC, an ancient Chinese martial art that stresses the ability to strike certain pressure points and thus cause incapacitation to death. His family was cursed. That's another theory. Bruce supposedly was haunted by demons. It was told that he had premonitions that he would die half his father's age, whom died at the age of 64. And as we know, Bruce died at the age of 32. You see, Bruce Lee believed in this curse because his dad also died under strange circumstances as well. And I will talk about that another time. I see a sequel. Anyway, he even was noting saying that he thinks that his son would die young as well. It seems the curse only affects the males, hence that is why his daughter is still alive. Another theory, Lee was murdered by triads. You all remember what I said. Okay, it said that the Chinese mafia killed Bruce Lee as a punishment for exposing many martial arts secrets that I just mentioned earlier. They had warned Bruce Lee over and over about exposing karate. He was the first to do work of the kind. The popular he became, the more movies he made, the bigger the audience and more karate on film, especially in the American market. Not to mention he was also teaching karate here in America. A big fuck you and a target on his head, literally. So after his death, which of course shrouded in mystery, his son Brandon Lee came onto the scene. As the son, he picked up where his father left off. But yet again, he was exposing their teaching. So it was much quicker that he was also met with his demise. Allegedly at the hands of the same Chinese mafia, the Triads. You see, the Triads are a group of organized criminals with ties to the entertainment industry in Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan, who are still top suspects in the murder of both Bruce and Brandon Lee. You see, the Triads were angry with Bruce Lee for refusing to work in their movies, and not to mention a contract that was already out on his life for beating of one of their sons back in the day. But also refusing to work with him was a big hell no. And it held a grudge against him and his son, Brandon, who paid the price and stopped breeding of a new son to also carry the legend and teaching martial arts that got spread by his father, Bruce Lee.
I put this video out, and as I stated before, I started receiving so many death threats, and then YouTube flagged it, and then it got copyrighted. It was just a big mess. Anyway, many people thought that, considering the fact that his son Brandon Lee also died mysteriously shortly after, well, not shortly after, but you know, they died in mysterious and violent ways, that their deaths wasn't just an accident. I mean, too many coincidences. I don't believe in too many coincidences. I really don't. But in fact, they may have been murdered to look like an accident. Well, I mean, that's what I have. Those are the theories that's out there. Let me know what your theory are below. I would love to read it. On that note, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like, and hit that bell so you get notifications for when I do post more videos. Love you all. See y'all later. Bye.